Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and this afternoon I would like to discuss the menstrual cycle, emphasis on endocrine basis and its variation. Before we continue, I would like to describe some terms such as menstruation, menarche, delayed menstruation, and disordered menses. So, starting from menstruation, menstruation is a physiological process that is characterized by the cyclical shedding of an estrogen primed endometrium following the withdrawal of support by progesterone, leading to the flow of menstrual blood through the vagina. That is that for menstruation. Then moving over to menarche. Menarche is the onset of menstruation and it usually occur between the age of 11 and 14 years, which corresponds to Turner breast stage 4 and 5. Moving further, I would like you to know that normal menstruation occurs between 1 to 7 days. That is, occurs within a period of 1 to 7 days. And the average volume of blood is usually, for a normal menstruation, is usually between is actually 50 mil, but the range is between 20 to 80 mils. In other words, a normal menstruation should not be less than 20 and it should not be more than 80 mils. And next thing I also want to define is delayed menstruation, also known as delayed menarche. We we say we have a delayed menstruation when the person has absence of menstruation after the age of 16 years. In other words, any lady who is 16 years old and has not had menarche is said to have delayed menstruation or delayed menses. And the next I also want to talk about is disordered menses. When can we say a patient has disordered menses? We can say a patient has disordered menses when there is an interruption between an interruption in the levels of interaction between the hypothalamus, pituitary, ovary, and uterus, also known as the HPO axis. Normal menstruation is an obvious marker to show that the HPO axis is functional. So moving further with what I said before, we are emphasizing on the endocrine basis and its variation. So we are going to talk about the HPO axis, that is the hypothalamus, pituitary, and ovarian axis. Talking about the hypothalamus, which is located in the forebrain, secretes a peptide hormone known as the gonadotrophin releasing hormone. This hormone is released in a pulsatile manner. That is, it is released little by little. And this hormone actually cause or stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete gonadotrophins such as the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. Now, over to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is responsible for the secretion of gonadotrophin when it has been stimulated by the hypothalamus. And the cells responsible for the secretion of gonadotrophins are the basophil cells. The basophil cells, they are responsible for the secretion of gonadotrophins, that is the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormones. These gonadotrophins are modulated by sex steroid hormones, which are the estrogen and the progesterone. These are sex steroid hormones that are produced by the ovary. So moving further to the ovary, during menstruation, the ovary undergoes three phases: the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase. So I'm going to quickly describe these phases, and I want you to follow me as I describe these phases. Starting from the follicular phase, in the early development of the follicle, gonadotrophin does not play any role. But in the later development, that is between the pre-antral and the pre-ovulatory phase, of the follicular phase of follicular development. This is the period where gonadotropin plays a role. And the gonadotropin of interest to us here is the follicle stimulating hormone. The follicle stimulating hormone. During the follicular stage, there is low level of estrogen, progesterone, and inhibin. And when there is low level of these hormones that I have mentioned, there is actually an increase in the secretion of follicle stimulating hormone. Now, what is the work of follicle stimulating hormone? Follicle stimulating hormone helps in the formation of antrum. It helps to develop what we call antrum follicle, a cohort, a group of little antrum follicles. And within these follicles, we have two cells. We have the granulosa cell and we have the theca cells. These two cells are responsible for the production of sex steroid hormones, that is the estrogen and the progesterone. Are you following me? So I'm still talking about the follicular phase now. The follicular phase occurs between day 1 and day 14. So between this period of time, there is what we call steroidogenesis. That is the formation of sex steroid hormones. And how does this play? You see, the luteinizing hormone that was produced or secreted by the pituitary gland acts on the theca cells, and acting on it, it converts cholesterol to androgen, and this androgen finds its way into the granulosa cells. While it gets to the granulosa cells, it is acted upon by follicle stimulating hormone. Are you following me now? It is acted upon by a process called aromatization into estrogen. Can I say that again? When there is formation, like I said, we have two types of cells. We have the theca cells and we have the granulosa cells. When luteinizing hormone produced by the pituitary act on the theca cells, it will make the theca cells to produce androgen from cholesterol. Then this androgen will enter the granulosa cells and it will be converted to estrogen by a process known as aromatization. And the hormone influencing that aromatization is follicle stimulating hormone. Now, something usually occurs here. What occurs is that, or something usually happens here, what happens is that estrogen that is produced by the granular cells, when it is low, when it is low, luteinizing hormone is low. But when it is high, luteinizing hormone is high. But unfortunately, when this estrogen is high, progesterone is low. Let us continue. This will now take us to the second phase, that is the ovulatory phase. Like I said, the follicular stage occurs between phase 1, day 1 rather, to day 14. So at day 14, there is what we call ovulation. Ovulation. And during ovulation, what actually happens is that there's what we call there is LH surge. There is a surge in luteinizing hormone. Why? Remember I said that estrogen which was produced in when it is increasing, luteinizing hormone will be increasing. It will increase to a peak whereby there will be the expulsion of the oocyte from the follicular wall. Simple, simple. And this usually occurs between 24 to 36 hours. During this period, there is also um, there is what we call the androgen that was in the theca actually stimulates libido. It increases libido. And libido is that urge for a woman to have sex with that is around ovulatory period. So that is that for the ovulatory period. Fast forward or moving forward to the luteal phase. After the expulsion of the oocyte from the follicular wall. Remember those two cells we talked about, that is the theca cells and the granular cells. They will be converted to what we call the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum. And later on, the corpus luteum will become vascularized so that it can continue to produce progesterone. Now, I want to explain to you how progesterone is entering the picture. Remember, I said that follicle stimulating hormone affects the granular cells, and it makes the granular cell to produce estrogen. Now, increase in estrogen will reduce follicle stimulating hormone. Hence, there'll be no enough follicle stimulating hormone to act on the granular cells. So what happens? Quickly, the follicle stimulating hormone will quickly stimulate luteinizing hormone receptors present in the granular cells. Present in the granular cells. And what will this do? This whole thing will now make the granular cells to produce progesterone. So hence, as estrogen is being released, or rather, as luteinizing hormone is being released due to increase in estrogen, there will be further increase in progesterone secretion. And this progesterone secretion is needed to maintain the walls of the endometrium for pregnancy. So that is how progesterone is produced by the corpus luteum. Moving further, mature corpus luteum is not sensitive to luteinizing hormone. Hence, what happens? Uh, there will be a reduction in progesterone secretion because the luteinizing hormone that is acting on the corpus luteum to produce progesterone is not working as it used to work before because the corpus luteum is now matured. Now, since there is withdrawal of support from progesterone, there will be shedding. But meanwhile, before that, in the absence of beta HCG, beta human chorionic gonadotrophin, from an implanting embryo, there will be a process called litholysis, whereby the corpus luteum will begin to degenerate, disappear, break down. So after a while, when there is no baby or there is no implanting embryo and the corpus luteum has matured, it no longer secrete progesterone to support the endometrium for implantation. Hence, there will be what we call the cyclical shedding of the endometrium. That is that for the luteal phase. Moving further, I want to also tell you the endometrial changes that occur during menstruation. The endometrial changes include one, the proliferative stage, two, the secretory stage phase, and three, there is the menstrual phase. These are the three endometrial changes that occur during menstruation. I repeat, number one is the proliferative phase, number two is the secretory phase, and number three is the menstrual phases. In my next video, I will describe these phases. But for now, I think I've tried. Thank you for your time. God bless you.